This week's topic for my blog was prompted by some questions on the TKGA forum of Ravelry and also some questions from some of my students. And it also will apply to my students for my Gauge class. One of the questions that comes up in the master's program and for the basics class that I teach is that no needle size is specified for the work. It says use a worsted weight wool and appropriately sized needles. And we do this for a reason, and that is to see if the knitter can figure out what an appropriately sized needle is. Now the place to start is with the ball band, and because we're not using any patterns here, we're just working directly with the wool and the size of needles. Now on this particular ball band, and I don't know if you can see it, but I will, the gauge information is indicated right here, and I will get a close-up photo of this for the blog itself. And it says using size 9 needles, the expected gauge for this yarn is 16 stitches. Now, is this carved in stone? Is this something that I absolutely have to follow? No, not if I am doing something on my own and not following a pattern. If I am using a pattern and I want it to fit, well then I'm going to have to work within those constraints. But if I am knitting swatches for the master's program or I am designing something, I can do whatever I want. Now for this particular yarn and my knitting, size 9 just is way too big, and I don't like the drape of the fabric. Now I have 3 swatches here, and they were all knit using the same yarn and different size needles. This was knit using size 4 needles, size 7 needles, and size 10.5 needles. And in the blog I will go through and do the stated gauge for these so you can see what that is. But you can see that needle size makes a very big difference. And what are we looking for here? Well, we're looking for something that people call hand or the drape, and that is how the fabric feels. Now this is closest to the recommended gauge on the ball band. This happens to be the gauge I like. I want it to be that drape or hand. I tried using a 9 and their recommended gauge, and it just felt a little too loose to me. So this is the one that I like for my swatches. The stitches are nice and even. The fabric has a nice feel. I can get a reasonable looking tension on it. I'm happy. Now this one is way too small. There is no drape to this at all. It is as stiff as a board. Now a lot of knitters when they're doing the master's program are attracted to this because if you're using those itty bitty teeny weeny little needles, your tension looks terrific. You don't really have a tension issue, and that is not a way to fix your tension by going down needle sizes, because this has absolutely no drape, and I wish you could feel this. There's no flow to it. Now if I were doing a coat or cushions, that would be great. Here is one where the tension is way too loose. And these are actually closer in the size of recommended needles for the yarn. But I just don't like this. It's too lacy. It just does not appeal to me. It is a little too flowy. I prefer this one. And it is closer to the recommended gauge for the master's program. The gauge you're looking for is 4 to 5 stitches per inch, and that will give it to you. This is not. So if you are doing the master's program or the basics class and you get the comment that your needles are too large or too small, what this means is that you need to use a size needle that is appropriate to the project, which in this case is swatches, and gives you a drape that is nice. You should be able to bend it. In this you can barely bend. You should not be able to see through it. And this is the gauge I prefer for my swatches. You might want them a little looser. That's okay, but not this loose. This is just way too loose.